to noon. Football Feast.
Here comes a man named Dan Pompei. He's a National Football League writer for The Athletic, one of the better National Football League writers in the country, and has been for quite some time. This Teddy Bridgewater piece, crafted by Dan Pompei, it's in my opinion, it's worth the price of subscription to The Athletic itself. The headline: backup quarterback, high school coach, neighborhood hero, Teddy Bridgewater embraces all of his roles. And we welcome the scribe into the Friday Football Feast with Paul Allen and Paul Charchian. Mr. Dan Pompei, good morning. Welcome. And what motivated you to deep dive and write about Teddy Bridgewater?
Well, great to be with you this morning, and thank you for the kind words. So it's interesting you should ask that question, because I had been wanting to write about him for a number of years. And when he was in New Orleans, I tried to get him to sit down with me. You know, this was kind of when he was really in the heart of his comeback from the knee injury. He had, as you recall, gone to the Jets for a short period of time, and then was traded to the Saints. And then all of a sudden, Drew Brees gets hurt, and he ends up having to start, I think it was 5 games or 6 games. And he didn't want to talk. And I tried to get him to talk after that, and he was kind of just wanted to lay low and didn't want a lot of attention on him at the time. So I kind of continued to pursue him a little bit over time. And then this fall, you know, he became the head coach. He retired from the NFL, became the head coach at Miami Northwestern High School, the high school that he attended himself as a young man. And I thought, well, this is a great time to do the story. So I reached out to him, and we had some conversation. He said he would do the story. And then it kind of died on the vine. He didn't, for whatever reason, didn't have the time or didn't want to do it. Finally, he wins a national championship at Miami Northwestern. And we start talking again. He said, yeah, let's do the story now. Well, then he comes out of retirement as a player, goes back and signs with the Lions. And it ended up, the timing was right to do the story. I was kind of hoping that the Lions would have more of a run in the playoffs, because it really would have been a great story to see him in the Super Bowl, maybe compete for 2 championships at 2 different levels in the same season, which no one's ever done.
Hey, Dan, Paul Charchian, it's nice to meet you. The story's great. I love that you used scars as a metaphor through much of the story. That was really nicely crafted. Teddy here in this town is still revered from his time here. We remember the 2015 season. Team went 11-5. Really should have advanced farther into the playoffs than they did. And then, of course, the catastrophic injury in 2016. He's still somebody that is remembered fondly here. Tell people a little bit about the state of the Miami Northwestern High School team that he took over and some of the unique things that he did to elevate that program, because it really is remarkable, and it says a lot about who Teddy Bridgewater is.
Well, the first thing I'll say, to go back to how you indicated that he's still revered in Minnesota, one of the things I found about him is he's kind of revered wherever he's been. Whether it be Miami Northwestern from the time he was a kid there, to Louisville, to, the Saints and the Dolphins and the Panthers and the Broncos. He's been all these different places. And the coaches who work with him often have lifelong relationships with him. It's how he ended up in Detroit, because Dan Campbell and some of the assistants on the Lions staff had worked with him in New Orleans, and Campbell in 2023 said, look, I want this guy on my team. And he ended up going there as Goff's backup in 2023, and then obviously came back again at the end of this season. But to answer your question, the team, at one point was a pretty good program, and it kind of fallen apart a little bit. They won only 4 games last year, and, didn't have, even though they had some talented kids, really didn't have a lot of direction. And Bridgewater gave them that, and he really was very selfless in how he did the whole thing. He completely dove right in. I think a lot of times with former players, they don't always make the best coaches, especially if they're, big name guys or guys who've made a lot of money, because, they don't always do all the nitty gritty stuff, the dirty work. Maybe sometimes they don't understand how less talented people can, not do the things that they did. But Bridgewater was very different in that regard. One of the first things he did was have a training camp in which all the players stayed over at the school, and he stayed with them. And not only did he stay with them, but he also pocketed a lot of took a lot of the expenses out of his own pocket, including feeding the kids 3 meals a day and a snack. And then as the season went on, he also paid for a lot of things, that they never had before, like cold tub and sauna and different things like that. He expanded the staff by I think 3 times. And, a lot of that he incurred it out of his own money. He did it because he cared so much about the kids and the neighborhood and the community that he'd always been a part of. And that was really what mattered most to him, was to try to lift the community.
And all of that is in this story about Teddy Bridgewater, written by our guest Dan Pompei at The Athletic and theathletic.com. Just to elaborate a little on that, Teddy gave his $5,000 stipend to coach the high school team to a math teacher. He used his own money to purchase a cold tub, sauna, and employ barbers and a chef for healthy pregame meals. So with the team, Dan, how much did the amenities truly aid the team's championship run?
Well, I think, it's a part of it, right? Like it always is. It's part of a bigger picture. I think what the amenities told these kids is somebody cares about them. And it was really about the connection that he forged with so many of the players. And the fact that, some of these kids came from rough backgrounds. Some didn't always have a meal at home at night. Some, didn't have parental influences the way that a lot of kids should. And Teddy was able to kind of cut through some of that. I mean, there was one kid who had lost both of his parents, and he was drifting. He was going to quit football. Instead, he transferred from another school to Miami Northwestern and ended up having a great season with Teddy's guidance. And this kid loves Teddy. The kid had 14 sacks, got a scholarship to Syracuse.
Wow. Now Dan also wrote, quote, when he took over the Bulls, Bridgewater saw so much athleticism and speed on his team, but he also saw desperation and hopelessness. A good coach, he knew, could handle that. So other than pumping, tens of thousands of dollars into the amenities and into the convenience to help them, feel like they belong more, but also to help them win games. It's like, what else did he do to really resonate with the community, the neighborhood, and stuff like that? Because it led to a championship, like you said.
Yeah, on his Instagram page, he's got the words "neighborhood hope dealer," and really, what it was about with him was hope. And I think that's why the Lions wanted him too, and that's why one of the reasons he was valuable in his NFL career is that he was able to lift the room, make the environment better. And in this case, hope was critical because some of these kids were probably bordering on hopelessness. So, I think really it says a lot to these kids that somebody like Teddy Bridgewater, his accomplishments, someone they saw on TV, they talked about in the neighborhood, came in there and cared about them individually. He took the quarterback, who was a first-year starter that they really didn't have a lot of confidence in before the season, under his wing. He took him to the park, which is the field is actually named after Teddy Bridgewater in the neighborhood, and he worked with him individually outside of practice, and taught him how to read defenses and how to look for open people and how to release the ball more quickly, and all those things really paid up. The kid ended up having a fantastic season. I think he threw, I forget how many touchdowns, 45 touchdowns or something like that, and it was that investment in the players that really resonated throughout the whole program, really.
Dan, you mentioned, and one of the things I learned in your story, Teddy Bridgewater, while with the Lions, had a specific connection with wide receiver Jameson Williams. And Williams has had a checkered NFL history to this point, suspended twice. He's had some taunting penalties. There's been some other things that have dogged him a little bit. I got to wonder if Dan Campbell specifically brought in Teddy to try to use Teddy for all the kinds of things you were just talking about, to try to help steer Jameson Williams into sort of better decision-making, better paths, better pro.
I mean, I certainly think that's a part of it, but it's certainly not the only part of it. I think last year, Teddy and Jameson formed a connection, and every time that Jameson has had one of these little bumps in the road, he has leaned on Teddy, and Teddy has been kind of a counselor, mentor, advisor to him, who he really, Jameson really, I talked to Jameson, and he really credits Teddy with helping him kind of stay focused and get through the hard times. And, he had the best year of his career this year, and he really believes that Teddy was a part of it. They worked together in the off season last year. And I didn't include this in the story, but, Jameson got suspended this season. I think it was 2 games for PEDs.
Yep.
And at one point, he thought that he was going to be away from the facility, couldn't go to the facility. So Teddy had texted him or called him and said, look, come down to Liberty City, in Florida, and we will work out together every day. He already had a script from the coaches on, what to work on, what routes to run, that kind of thing. And they were all ready to do it. But then at the last minute, I think he was able to return to the facility. There was some, a change in the policy or how it was judged, and he didn't go down there. But, that's the kind of thing that Teddy would have done for him that would have kept him going in a tough time.
Dan, last one. Thanks for the time, man. Appreciate you and love reading your stuff. Outside of this covenant, outside of the Bridgewater story, Ben Johnson, the Ben Johnson hire with the Bears, including his press conferences and his interviews. The man is quite cocksure, isn't he, Dan?
Well, I think, as a new head coach, you want to portray confidence, and he certainly has done that. And, he's got a right to be confident in terms of what he can do offensively or what he's done offensively. But it's going to be a little bit different with the Bears because, with the Lions, he was driving a Cadillac, and he's not driving a Cadillac anymore. So he's going to have to figure out how to use different offensive pieces. And obviously, he's got a challenge that he's never had before in terms of leading an entire team and being a head coach. So it's going to be interesting to work out. He is an outstanding offensive coordinator and play caller. There's no question about that. But again, it's a lot easier to do that when you've got a bunch of all pros. You've got maybe the best offensive line in football, and you've got explosive weapons, and you've got a quarterback who you're really in sync with. And that's one of the things that it's why he is in Chicago. I think is because he was able to really make a strong bond with Jared Goff when Goff was at a rough time in his career, and they spent a lot of time together and really were together in many, many ways. And, it paid off, obviously, in how the Lions grew and developed over the last few years. And now the Bears want to see if he can do that with Caleb Williams.
Great job. We really enjoyed the time. Have a wonderful weekend, okay?
Okay. Thanks, PA. Enjoyed it.
No problem. Dan Pompei, The Athletic, theathletic.com, and a story deeply rooted on too much time for Teddy. Chad Greenway, former linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings, joins 9 to noon each and every Friday. That'll take place around the corner. But first,
The Fan wants to give you a chance to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. Go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword credit. You might win $1,000 with the keyword credit. Enter it at KFAN.com right now.
have fun.
Fire away.
Welcome back, Friday Football Feast. In studio now, 52, Chad Greenway. Hey, buddy.
What's up?
Look at you. I don't think I've ever seen you in a sport coat before.
Look good,
a
right?
button-up shirt. Like, what is going on?
I'm very uncomfortable.
I bet.
I had a speaking engagement this morning, one of my many things I do, and it went great. So I'm here, dressed to impress. How do I look?
Honestly, I'd hit that.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, yeah, when you want to do it, you can.
Yeah.
You carry it well.
I can pull it off once in a while.
You can. I like it. What's the speech? So what's the speech that you give? What is the theme for your speech?
Well, for this group this morning, it was about my time in the NFL and finding that level of separation, that 1%. You know, when you're amongst the best in the NFL, you're rarely physically better than anybody.
Yeah.
How do you find your advantage? And it's rarely because of talent, right? It's because of the things that take no talent, quite honestly, that separate you in a lot of ways. So
work,
effort, work, effort. But the things like, you know, your enthusiasm, the energy you bring to a meeting, to a lift, to whatever. Yeah. So just trying to, so when you talk professional development, and you're out there looking for how do I find an advantage in this competitive industry? It's like, well, there's small things that usually aren't talent based, typically. And I give several examples of teammates. You know, you cite Ben Lieber, Jared Allen, some other guys that found advantages when they weren't necessarily the most physically gifted.
Do you give them royalties off your speaking fee?
Oh, absolutely not.
No. I mean, it seems like you should.
Will Jared give me royalties off his Hall of Fame because I covered him up for 700 tackles that he missed he could go get a sack?
How about this for the fellow linebacker played for the Bears? And it may have been, it was pregame for a Vikings-Bears game, and it was either you or Ben Lieber. And I just happened to be like next to it on the sideline talking to Bears linebacker Hunter Hillenmeyer.
Stud.
And he was okay. He played in the league a long time.
Yeah.
You know, but it was near the end of the season. Bears weren't very good. I can't remember the players at whom he pointed. But he was like, well, I mean, like, this guy's stronger than me. That guy jumps higher than me. That guy runs faster than me. And they may all be out of the league, or I may end up playing twice to three times as long as them, simply, copyright Bill Belichick, by doing my job.
Yep.
By simply being in the place, it's a thy, not I, too. I think I should go over there because look at the flow of this guard and the running back, but if I do my job, the others eat.
Yep.
And so by just strictly following instructions, Hunter Hillenmeyer, the only chat that I was ever part of with him, he was kind of like, you will last a long time because others will go back to their will and their skill set, and they'll run themselves out of the league.
Yeah, I think you find that a lot in the NFL. There's always going to be more talented guys than you. I was being, year 6, 7, 8, 9. These guys keep getting drafted. You look at these guys like, how am I going to beat these guys out?
Right.
You know, and when they drafted me, what I was essentially told was because EJ was in a place where he wasn't playing the position that they thought he would play, wasn't living up to what they thought he would do.
EJ Henderson.
And I come into training camp and I'm like, you want me to beat this guy out?
But see, like you were faster than him. You were faster than EJ.
But the point is like, there's talented dudes at every position in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to find your advantage? Mm-hmm. And like to your point, like Hunter Hillenmeyer, I think Vandy native, like Vandy alum, like good career. Like I don't know how long he played, probably 10 plus.
Yeah, it's like 12
because he was prepared, smart, physical enough to get the job done.
Accepted when they went to nickel, Urlacher and Briggs stay. He goes out, and he's got to do well on special teams.
And when you're one of 11, that's why you call it the ultimate team game. There's so many things happening in such a fast amount of time that you have to know exactly where to be, when to be there. And sometimes, think about Ben. Ben was the uncovered linebacker. He'd take on more offensive linemen. He had to do his job.
Fullbacks like Madison Hedgecock.
Do over and over and over.
Squatty Madison Hedgecock.
Do his job. And sometimes that means you're going to do your job for 70 plays and get 2 tackles, and we all win.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm covered up by,
That's so interesting.
Kevin Williams, the 3 technique, maybe only one of the best ones to ever play.
Yeah.
And I get to play behind him and be protected and run around and play 70 snaps and make 12 tackles and get my name in the paper, right? And Ben's like just doing his job.
Yeah.
And, that's just, and sometimes it's not your day, but you have to go take on the fullback, spill it to EJ. EJ's got to make the tackle. That's his job. Corner's got to be outside leverage. So everybody does their job. So sometimes, then you have the unique guys who can do both. I'm smart, I can be where I need to be, and I'm physically better than you. Steve Hutchinson, right? Yeah. It's like I'm more prepared.
Yeah,
smart might be a little bit of a stretch with Hutch.
No,
he's
Hutch
very
is
smart.
extremely smart.
I know.
Now, think about
he got a master's from Michigan.
Yeah, well,
just kidding.
They give those out.
Michigan Masters.
I actually used Hutch this morning as an example of to be Hall of Fame HOF.
Yeah.
Is he physically better than you? Yes.
Yeah.
Was he more prepared and smarter than you? Yes.
Yeah.
The guy was never unprepared, and guess what? He did it day after day after day for 12 plus.
I love that.
And guess what? He's HOF.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes, to get to that level, you got to be uniquely talented and uniquely consistent and smart as well.
You touched on something when you first said, we were talking about your speech. Okay, work and effort. I think that feels more like, well, duh. I just want to, I want to work hard. And I'm thinking about people in corporate America that are listening right now. And I've only ever worked in small fantasy companies, but man, do I love people that bring positivity and optimism and enthusiasm and, energy. I love working with those people, and you don't have to. For me,
you wouldn't have liked Hutch.
Yeah.
I would not. No, that was not Hutch.
I guess there's more than one way to skin an HOF cat.
Yes,
I don't want to work with people who are incompetent and do not try. But man, do I value people that bring those intangibles. And I got to believe there are people in the locker room that are like that too, that are just like forces of positive energy.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of great points, because the first thing you mentioned is when you're around really good people, it makes you better, right? So all the people you listed, you go into practice, you go into lift with these guys, they bring an energy to say, I'm going to live up to that standard. And the thing about football, the eye in the sky don't lie. They watch and video everything. Right. So accountability it's there. And the thing about it is you try to find the frauds who are out there that are just faking it, that don't really want to be there, that just really are there for themselves, that really are just there for the check, that really aren't buying into the team culture. They're like, where's the next contract coming? You find those guys. When all of a sudden you say, hey, whose mistake was this? You should have spilled this ball, should have went to the line, blah, blah, blah. I didn't hear that, coach. It wasn't there for that. He's like, well, you were, we heard it, and now you're a fraud, and we don't like you anymore. Yeah. And how soon can we get rid of this guy?
Jeez.
And that's just how it works.
I thought you and Ray Edwards were closer.
But the energy piece is so funny, because I always talk about work ethic. You're in the NFL. Work ethic is required.
Agreed.
It's a minimum. That's not, you're not blowing anybody's doors off by being a hard worker.
They all are.
But so the level of separation is beyond that. What else are you doing? There's a hard work minimum, but are you staying after to put the extra work in? Are you taking on the tackling dummy again because you had a rough day last week and you're willing to own the fact that you weren't very good? And I'm not going to look away and be like, no, I'll be better next week. I'm a pro. No, I'm going to actually work at it and get better. And then the guys who do it at the highest level, they can do it just more consistently and better than you.
I think Harrison Smith, when he was pressed nearing the end of the season, not right at the end, but whether it's drive-bys after a victory with yours truly or people interviewing him or whatever, he started to get consistent with something that I think elevates what you're saying and amplifies it. The monotony of finding ways to push through the monotony of all these meetings. It's not required on Mondays and Tuesdays that you should get into that tablet, but you know what? The best ones do, and they come prepared Monday for when practice begins. Would you say that those prepared for the Wednesday practice to start the practice week, that the majority of the team did not put time in until Wednesday, or the majority of the team did?
So it depends on when the game plan was put in.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys are coming to work Wednesday with an idea of what's going to happen.
Got it.
And then they get game plan Wednesday morning. You kind of regurgitate, you get that, you take it in, then you try to go regurgitate it at practice and understand what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And then you build on it from there. But guys like Harry, what separated him since the day he was first coming to the league, when my years with him, is he was going to be more prepared, or as prepared as anybody else.
And he can help others.
Yeah, and he's willing to help others. Even if there's guys competing against him, he's still going to help those other safeties.
Well, I mean, think when I say monotony, let's go back to the day when you played against, say, Matt Forte. Okay, Matt Forte, Tulane, you played against him, right? Yeah, one of the great screen
stud
running backs really in the last 20, 30 years of the NFL.
That was great.
Super smart, deceptive with setting up those screens, waiting for Olin Kreutz and those guys to get out there.
Yes.
Well, think how many times in a week of practice up to the Bears you repped the Matt Forte screen over and over and over and over. And it's like I say, the monotony late in the season, especially when you're like 3-9, you didn't have many of those, but you had a couple.
Yeah.
You know, that really is the separator in the professionalism, is when you're able to work it a certain way, when you're able to stay consistent with it, keep the thou not I attitude and not go rogue and, try to get yourself 15 tackles in a game when you know it's not that kind of game. And even if the season is bad, that's what I've seen over the years. Those rise to the top.
Well, I think when you have a culture of guys where guys want to be that and they want to be there together.
Yeah, that was Harry this year.
Yeah, because
of all the kids around him.
Yeah. Flores, he likes to play for Flores. You got the kids around that is keeping him young and motivated and excited to come to work and kind of become a pseudo coach for those guys. That's exciting for him to keep building on that and keep doing it. I mean, that's what the monotony. That's how you fight through it, by having those guys and fighting through that. And the funny thing about like that Matt Forte screen is you build all week and you prepare and you run it and you fit it against every coverage and defense. And then you get into the game and like, what's the coverage? What's the defense? How do I fit the screen?
Yeah.
My job is just to run this offensive guard.
Yeah.
So the other guy can make the tackle.
That's great.
Then
the corner misfits it and it gets outside for 25.
Right. I thought you and Asher Allen had a good relationship.
And then you guess what? You go back to the huddle and be like, and Asher's like, that's on me.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can live with that as a teammate if I know that guy has put the work in and makes a mistake. And he's like, yeah, that's on me, guys. I get back and I'm like, yeah, got you. We'll get you next time. Because the next time it'll be your mistake.
But think about the mental monotony and pushing through it over the course of the entire season, whether the season's good or bad. But the differences in games you were a weak side linebacker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for a weak side linebacker who's probably going to lead the team in tackles or be close with the safety, generally speaking, depending on how they play it. And so Matt Forte screen. I mean, come on, Leslie, we've gone through this 18,000 times. Just keep doing it. Because next week, you may not have to be ready for that, or the previous week, but you've just been pounded on by Eddie Lacy.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden,
how's that body feeling?
You got that beef eater, and then now you're trying to mentally and physically recover for the slithery and kind of slender and deceptive Matt Forte. Embracing that challenge and eliminating what you just went through. I mean, you got to be smart to do that.
The funniest part about all the things you mentioned, the things that people don't see, is the Wednesday, week 14, when you're fully padded in practice.
Oh, wow.
And you're miserable because you're 4-10, 5-11.
And why go full pads?
You're pad because they want to see it fit. They want to see the run fit. They want to keep the physicality. They need to win the point of attack. Like this is probably an older school mentality than what they're doing now. I know for a fact what KOC is doing from a practice standpoint. But there's weeks when you come in, and for us it was pretty consistently. You're going fully pad, uppers and lowers, Wednesday and sometimes Thursdays deep into the season, and because they want to see you physically fit up a run play. And do it, not just be in your spot.
Yeah.
And work on those fundamentals daily, weekly, how to fit, and all of a sudden you get into a game and it's just like second nature and you can happen. Now that's a miserable Wednesday and you show up like, yeah,
but guess what? It's miserable. It's miserable for others too, because player A is not doing their job. So now others get into the pads. The offensive lineman may be having an all-pro season. Now it'd be a scout guy. So the scout guy, practice squad, backup, trying to get his way, just get his way onto the roster.
Going extra hard.
Well, now I got to go in pads. Yeah. This is going to hurt. We got a loser team here. This guy over here is making mistakes, and I got to feel the pain.
Yeah, and guess what? That guy who's on the practice squad wants to be in the starting unit, so he's going extra hard. Yeah. And he didn't play against Eddie Lacy last week. Like, he's fresh.
Yeah. And he missed Urlacher, didn't he?
Yeah, buckle up. You got to go again. So, and then, by the way, the guy behind you, your backup, he's like 23, really fast, probably good looking, and they're paying him less. So they actually want him to have your job.
The best.
So just try and screw up, please. Yeah. That's just the life.
Hey, do you have something else going?
Yeah, just quickly. You were talking about how some guys are frauds, and that it shows itself at different moments. Two things. One is, does anybody go from fraud to non-fraud? Do they ever get better? Or is that just kind of who they are? And quickly when that free agent shows up or that kid gets drafted, this kid isn't going to do all the little things that you're talking about. and, whether it's accepting responsibility or blah, 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 right? Do guys ever get better at that? Does it get coached out of them, or do teammates pull them out of that stuff? Or is it kind of just who you are?
Well, I think young guys that are drafted that have an energy about them like that, they can figure it out.
They get humbled, right?
Yeah, you get humbled. I mean, the NFL humbles everybody.
Would
whether
Sam
know how good you are.
Darnold be an example there? And I don't want to call Sam a fraud. He was in difficult situations. But he went from whatever you want to use this as a describer to what we saw last year. It's kind of in the same fishbowl.
Well, I think you come in high draft pick. Maybe you have just a big ego. You come in with an idea of how good you think you are. Maybe you have a good start to the season. All of a sudden, the NFL hits you. It's like you can. Those guys can learn. Those guys can understand to be humbled and be humiliated in some capacity, right? And be and have to own mistakes.
Yeah.
Or you kind of give the young guys a break, so to speak. But a free agent comes in year 4, year 5, gets paid all this, truckload of money, and hard to tell that guy anything. And you've seen him come in, and you see they either acclimate to the locker room and the wind in the locker room and how that thing's blowing, and you get with the flow, or you don't. And typically that's not going to work out because the locker room as a whole is always going to be the one that holds court. So if whatever that core is, that core 30, 40 guys that are bought into the culture and the idea and what this team is going to be about, if you come and try to take away from that, the core is going to always be there and
reach.
So for 11 years, I was fortunate to be in one spot with this, the same GM essentially the whole time. 3 coaches, but Frazier, Tomlin drafts me.
Yeah.
Chili. Frazier kind of went over both those with Chili, then to be the head coach.
Then Zim, defense first.
Then Zim comes in, defense first, and his mentality was heavy accountability. And you're 6 inches misaligned, and he's going to scream at you from across the field with a massive dip in, with chew juice down into his beard, with his little gimp walk, and I'm like, he's yelling at me You're 100 yards away screaming at me because I'm 6 inches misaligned on some motion, and it's let me see that again.
Yeah.
And he screams at you, and you're like, okay, this is the level of detail he's expecting.
Yeah.
And that accountability, it just shows itself. And I learned that when I walked into Iowa City, my first time leaving high school and going to college there.
Norm Parker.
This is what it's like. It starts with the coaches and the culture.
I bet.
But it really is ran by the locker room. And if the locker room can find you out, and you either correct or you're gone because you don't want to be there.
How quickly are you forgiving as a locker room then to see that change? Because in some ways you're fighting uphill against a perception, right?
Yeah. And
once that perception sticks, there's a lot that person has to work harder to maybe shake that off.
Never forget it, but always remind them. even if they've self-corrected the behavior in some way. I'm not sitting here preaching from the top like I knew everything, right? I got you. I got raked over the coals several times too because of just little things you do. And the locker room corrects you, and you're like, "Yep, that's on me. My bad." You don't have to let it go completely, but you never forget, and you always remind them.
Chad Greenway Weekly on the Friday Football Feast, courtesy of Grey Duck Vodka and Spirits. When we return, for whom is Chad rooting in the Super Bowl 9 days from today? We'll figure that out and talk it out on KFAN. Baby. 1046 in the neighborhood being FM 100.3, KFAN, your audio home for everything funky and fun. Welcome back. Paul Charchian at Paul Charchian via Twitter. He has a poll. How old is this poll?
A couple of days. It was from Sunday.
Yep, yeah. Jan 26. Who will you be rooting for? Chiefs, Eagles, I'd rather eat glass. The I'd rather eat glass gets 56% of the votes as to where we are now. Eagles are 14.5%, and the Chiefs are 29%. What led you to do this? And what are the answers?
It's the matchup nobody wanted, even though they're the best teams. And I'm not going to go so far as to say the Chiefs don't deserve to be there. Some people feel that way, that the Bills got jobbed, and you can absolutely make that argument. These are good teams, but. Who's happy for the Eagles fans? Nobody. They don't deserve good things.
The only question I have is what was in the running besides I want to eat glass.
Right.
Well,
were there like 2 or 3 other ones that were like...
No, it was Chiefs, Eagles, or I'd rather eat glass.
Yeah, he kept it
Those
simple.
were your options.
Kind of funneled the votes in a certain direction.
Well, I didn't try. I mean, people, they're free to choose Chiefs and Eagles.
I choose glass as well.
You do?
Yes.
All right. Well, what's your take here, Norge? Because I guess I'm in the minority here with best 2 teams in the game, hottest maybe 2 of the 3 best GMs in the league, putting their shrewd picks, trades, and acquisitions on display.
Ick.
One coach who may be the greatest in the history of the game in Andy Reid, a quarterback who may be the best in game lore, and a running back who's completely unstoppable, and football snobs should really, really be interested in how super special Spags may try to slow him. I mean, oh, and by the way, you have fantasy, daily fantasy or guillotines. And then
it's a prize picks feast.
If a $2 win bet on the Super Bowl in the state of Minnesota was not considered akin to taking a tourniquet, tying it around your arm, slapping your biggest vein so you can inject horse,
yuck.
If it wasn't considered to be that by whomever, well, then, maybe you could you could spot up a little bit on it. So you got people pulling for teams too. So what do you think, Norge?
Well, I think that I would have preferred the Bills, and I absolutely would have preferred the Commanders. And, what Jaden Daniels had done, and you think about new things, the three-peat doesn't excite me as much as the idea of Jaden Daniels as a rookie starting in a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's even arguable for anybody outside of those 2 fan bases. In the end, it is the Chiefs. It is Patrick Mahomes. It is Andy Reid.
It is the best 2 in the game.
It is Saquon Barkley, and on his birthday, the chance, and so
that's a thing.
I'm not watching the game and considering the Eagles fan base who have their issues.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it, and the Vikings fans were on the wrong end of that at one point in time. I'm excited for the game. I am excited for it because I am getting to watch 2 high-enders.
Yeah.
It's going to be an awesome game. The coaching matchup, one of the best of all time, as you mentioned it in Reed, versus that sniveling dweeb Sirianni. you think about that. Jalen Hurts has really been undersold, even though he went to a Super Bowl. The same way he was talked about at Alabama in college, people kind of judge him in a similar vein in the NFL. He could very much go out, throw 4 TDs, and be the Super Bowl MVP. Just all the bits associated with the game, I'm absolutely going to watch. And I believe that the 56.4% who would rather eat glass, 99% of them are going to watch the game too.
True.
We're going to get over the fact that the Bills may have gotten jobbed, which I'll go so far, I think they did on that 4th down conversion in particular. Mm-hmm. But they're still going to watch the game, and it's still going to be awesome.
Okay, FICPA, Fairness in Charges Poll Act. It's for whom will you be rooting, not will you watch.
Correct.
Okay, so
2 different things.
Probably should have laid, because they're the glass eaters, they're all going to watch the game like the con said. But
because in the end, when the rubber meets the road, they're not going to actually eat the glass.
Right.
They will just watch.
Sounds awful.
The big game.
Eating glass?
Don't you think both things can be true, though? Like, this matchup, maybe it's just society and social media, but I'm kind of bored with it. Like, I'm kind of over it.
That's
as
the
good,
thing,
as
right?
good as everything you just laid out is 100% true. Like, so both things can be true. The matchup's the best. The player's the best. The coaching thing is super interesting.
I'm with you.
Spags, I know Lieber played for Spags down in St. Louis.
Right.
Didn't like his experience down there.
Correct.
Got some opinion on that.
Yeah.
I'll leave it to let Ben say that.
we've heard it.
and he will.
And my
But he
response
will.
is always, what if it was Ben?
Yeah,
He talked about it yesterday, in fact.
What if it was Ben?
The dude can coach. The dude can win.
He's an elite coordinator.
And but at the same time, I'm kind of bored with it personally, and that's why I wanted to see somebody else in there that was more interesting to me. But it's also kind of a loser take, because why couldn't our team be there, right?
But why are Buffalo, Washington more interesting if they're not as good?
Just because they're different.
Well,
They're different.
I think
Right,
Buffalo's
you have
just as good as
Buffalo first time ever winner.
Yeah.
There's that whole
First
story
time
there.
a rookie quarterback has started in the Super Bowl.
It gives you a glimpse into what could be us. 4 Super Bowl losses for the Bills.
glimpse.
They get the win. Maybe that's us next year.
Well,
Circle the wagons.
See, this matchup here from a Vikings fan standpoint, and it's been this way before because we don't go to the Super Bowl. At least we haven't been to the Super Bowl in a long time. It can bring if you are a masochist or you have masochism to you, well, it can bring out the worst in you because you have 3 technique envy. You have
Yes.
third down blitz beater envy.
Yes.
You have quick slant from obtuse spot envy, and all of that is done by the Minnesota Vikings. People just conveniently forget it, because in a prisoner of moment society, what just happened is what we're gonna glom onto. But there are things that transpire with these teams as you learn about them during the Super Bowl that are not obvious. Then you're kind of like, well, I want that.
Yeah, the two bits.
I could have done that in the fourth round. Seriously,
the two bits for the Eagles that are most interesting. Remind me of his name? The Creature 3 technique for the Eagles.
Jordan Davis.
No,
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter. Yeah, he had a huge game.
Monster. And then the Iowa talker kind of squeaking a Hawkeye bit. Cooper DeJean, since they moved him into the slot,
so good.
Their defense has been elite. Let's talk about having a couple white corners in the league from Iowa.
You can go ahead and talk about
Riley Moss with the Broncos.
You'll be the one eating glass off the radio.
We are what we are.
That's the unicorn. Unicorns they are.
That's unicorn too.
Was it
Jason Sehorn go crazy?
Yeah, Jason Sehorn probably would have been the last one, right?
Yep, Mike Furry.
Yeah.
Remember Mike Furry?
Mike Furry.
Mike Furry was one of Paul Charchian's least favorite players because he was on offense playing receiver for the Rams, and he chose to go play DB.
Who would do that?
Dumb.
Who would ever do that, Mike Furry? That's so dumb. It's hard to resent the Eagles when you look at the roster they built organically through the draft. It's insane.
Most talented in the league.
I think it's the reason I am going Eagles here. As much as I don't like the fan base, as much as I have the animosity.
Rooting for or predicting?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. And I think the defensive line, as we talked about, the cover in the back end, you think back to the Chiefs Super Bowl that was lost. It was their inability to keep Mahomes upright.
That's right.
And I think that the front from the Eagles will have that much disruption. And I think that's going to be the difference in the game. Now, Mahomes is Mahomes. He's going to probably go make some crazy plays, and I'll look like an idiot, and we can play this soundbite next week. It'd be fun. No. But the reality is, I think that's the difference.
So do we want Trey Smith to have absolutely just a brutal Super Bowl to save the Vikings a few bucks in free agency? Is that how we're looking at it right now?
Right guard for the Chiefs, going to cost a lot. 6th-round pick from Tennessee in 2021.
Just get turnstiled in the big game.
Made himself $940,000 as his highest pay into this year. They bumped him a little bit, maybe up to 1.3.
Good for him.
His prorated, I'm going to use this for a third time this week because I happen to like it. His prorated signing bonus this year is $32,000.
Wow.
Sauce makes more than that in 2 months of endorsement.
Wow.
So so what we want with him is we want him to get hurt.
No.
Okay. Can I finish? Can I finish?
No. Don't start.
Can I finish? We want him to get hurt early in the game and have it be misdiagnosed.
Okay.
So therefore, everybody thinks he's off an ACL or an MCL or a PCL or a PCH. Mm-hmm. Pulled calf, got him for $9 million less.
So the trainer holds him out against his will. He is actually able to come back in.
Yes.
But, okay.
Yes. That's what we want.
Trying to save himself some money.
Man.
Really threading the needle there.
That's their way to... Yeah, that's a careful bit on the karma.
No doubt. All right, so Grey Duck Spirits, anything going on right now?
No, just having a great start to our Q1. So what we've done...
I'm glad you are.
Thank you, very welcome. And the past year was record-breaking and record-setting in Grey Duck world, knowing that our impact is being made across Minnesota, which is so fired up.
Up here pulling for the audio network.
New seltzer pack coming out this spring, going to be sweet for the summer, going to be popping. Going to expand our Bomba Juice line, so got some good stuff cooking.
That's excellent. Great seeing you. Love you very much. Best of luck to the girls. What's your second daughter's name who plays for Providence Academy?
Beckett.
Thank you. Madden
go.
and Beckett, best of luck to y'all with your upcoming games, and we'll see you soon, all right?
You bet. Thanks.
Chad Greenway, Grey Duck Spirits and Grey Duck Vodka. When we return, we're going to hook up with a man named Thor Nystrom, who is not only the champion of the J.J. McCarthy fan club. He also is a fantasy writer for Fantasy Life, and he's been at the Senior Bowl. So we'll hook up with him around the corner on KFAN.